if you want to follow the things you like, you got to listen to yourself. And that's the only intuition or advice that's going to work, because you know what you are doing and you know where you are going. So nobody else going to know for you, and you got to trust yourself.
That's Katia Kulawick Assante, and this is the Powerful Ladies podcast. Hey guys, I'm your host, Cara Duffy, and this is the Powerful Ladies podcast, where I invite my favorite humans, the awesome, the up to something, and the extraordinary to come and share their story. I hope that you'll be left entertained, inspired, and moved to take action towards living your most powerful life. Katia is on my list of women I want to be when I grow up. She's an author, a journalist, a wife, and a mom who splits her time today between Corsica, the French Alps, and Paris. So tough, right? Today, she writes for Architecture's Digest, Vanity Fair, and the Louis Vuitton City Guides. She started her career in 1995 at 18 as a rock journalist, traveling the world over 200 days a year, interviewing bands in a post-Nirvana world. On this episode, we talk about the journey of her career, what she prioritizes, and how she maintains the rock and roll approach to life. All that and so much more coming up, but first. Hey guys, did you know that there is a way that you can show Powerful Ladies some real love? You can be a patron of the Powerful Ladies podcast. Go to patreon.com/Powerful Ladies. There are over 6 choices for you to figure out how you would like to support us, from $5 all the way up to unicorn support. Really, that's what it's called. You can be a Powerful Lady unicorn. Who doesn't want to be that? The great part is, by your contributions, you get more cool free stuff and access to new and exclusive opportunities. Everything from hidden podcast to free merch to free coaching. What? You can be a unicorn and get free coaching or win a trip to LA paid for by us. That sounds amazing. You want a hug, don't you? So go and support Powerful Ladies on Patreon today. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for being on the Powerful Ladies podcast. I'm so excited to talk with you today. Let's start by you introducing yourself and telling people who you are and what you're up to.
So my name is Katia Kulawick Assante. It's a pretty long name. I'm 43 years old and I'm an author and journalist since 22 years now. I've been working in a lot of different magazines, women magazine, fashion magazine, men's magazine, and my red line was always to talk about the society today and what we are up to, what we are living through the very little things, through the very little details. And not the official information that can be biased sometimes. So, voilà.
Who are some of the publications that you've written for?
I've been writing I've been the editor of Men's Vogue, the Vogue International, for a few years. That was a long time ago already. It was 2005, 2006. And we published it in France, but it was also the US version that we did. So that was, quite exciting, I must say, when you send an email to Madonna's agent and he's writing you back,
Oh yeah, I remember when Men's Vogue came out. I was so excited about it, and I saved the George Clooney cover edition for a long time because I was so excited that somebody was finally treating men's fashion and lifestyle the same way that women's has been treated for so long.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because before that, it was mostly more streetwear, teenage, younger oriented men's magazines, or it was all health and fitness. There wasn't anything for premium, high fashion, luxury, like a premium lifestyle.
Exactly. Well, what we tried to do at the time was to really talk to men, but not only and treat them not as only models or people who were ready to buy stuff in luxury items, but really try to find the content for them and be very international too. So yeah, and just before that, I co-founded a magazine that was called Sport and Style. That is a French luxury magazine that was offered with daily newspaper L'Équipe, which is the first sport newspaper here. And and I ran that magazine for 10 years. So that was a very manly surrounding. And basically, I started in music. My first magazine was a rock magazine.
Very cool.
Very cool. So yeah, I was 18, and that's very. It was very unexpected, I would say.
How did you get that first job?
I was working for a radio station in Strasbourg, where I grew up in France, in the east of France, near the German border. And I wanted to do a journalism school, but there was that branch where you could at the same time work in a magazine and go to school at the same time. And I thought it was more efficient than just going to school and pretending you're doing magazine all year long.
Yep.
And so I found that magazine randomly because I was targeting a metal magazine, and but they didn't have the money to hire me. So. Life is always like that. And then I met the editor of that magazine. Was called Rock Sound at the time, and he said, "Well, okay, do me. Write the first story on the rock scene in Strasbourg, and we'll see where we can go from there." And I was hired just after that. And after that, I went. I started to travel to the States all the time, following bands on tour and interviewing everyone. A lot of rock scene at the time. That was 95.
Ooh, a great time!
Great time. So right after Nirvana.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was all the scene after, post-Nirvana. So I went to see David Bowie for his 50th birthday at the Madison Square Garden.
Amazing.
That was the high time, the high peak, of my career at the time.
But prior to getting into the rock magazine world, were you passionate about music? Was it already part of what you loved and were doing anyway, or was it a new kind of area for you to explore?
It was very, very new for me to explore because I remember all the journalists at the time. First I was the only girl in France, at least. There were only boys doing that, and I wasn't a musician. Opposite to other journalists who wanted to be musicians or rock stars but failed their career, so they ended up like rock journalists.
Yep.
I had none of these targets really, and I just wanted to meet like fun people and crazy people and artists, and I thought that was the best way to do it, and it brought me to travel the world and meet much more people than I ever could imagine, in a life.
And getting you even here to the Powerful Ladies podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
And to let everybody know, I love how you and I met. It's one of my favorite ways I've ever met somebody.
Yes.
I had flown to France for Adeline's wedding, who I think is episode 8 of the Powerful Ladies podcast.
Yeah, I heard her. She was very interesting.
Right? She's so amazing. I love her. And so I fly to her wedding, and they did this great thing at the middle part of their wedding where they gave everybody a name and you had to find your match. And a lot of it was Disney themed, like you'd find Belle and the Beast. And I don't remember which one of us got which, but I know that one of us was Nemo and one of us was Dory. And you're walking around and like, I know how to say like 10 things in French. That's about it. That's where I cap off. I can read more than I can say, but that's it. So I'm meeting all these people who, most of whom English is not their first language, trying to find, Nemo or Dory. And then I find you, and then we just kind of hit it off and kept talking. And then I realized what an amazing, interesting, powerful person you are. And I'm like, yes, we're going to stay friends. I like this one.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a very good memory from that evening and that party. And
Yeah, it was super fun. And speaking of interesting characters, I mean, I didn't realize I was going to a wedding with so many of the most interesting people of Paris experience. Like there was the entire, and please correct me if I get it wrong, but there was the entire group that does like air bands.
Oh yeah, they're playing air music. Air music.
Yes, which I had never even heard of before, and they were so entertaining because they did a performance at the third part of the wedding.
Yeah, they're just pretending they're playing instruments. Yeah.
Yes, it's like Milli Vanilli basically all the time. No, but it's so amazing because they're such good performers, and you think that they're the musicians, but they're not singing, they're not playing an instrument, but they're going for it.
Yeah, it's as if they were doing. I mean, it's the same energy on stage. So
even more probably because you're not consumed with having to actually like make the music happen.
Yeah.
And in France, that was a TV competition, correct?
With air music,
yeah. I really hope that this somehow comes to America because we
you don't
need
have
this.
that?
No.
Wait. Time out. What do you win if you win an air music competition? What is the overall? Are you just having fun? Are you winning?
Or no drum.
Like you're pretending to play the instrument and like the winning prize is the instrument that you've been pretending to play?
I don't know what they're winning in the end, really. I don't know, but I saw there was I don't know where it was, but I think it was in France or maybe Belgium. There was an air sex show, so you have people on stage just pretending they're having sex.
This is amazing.
But with no one else. I mean, just by themselves,
This is so great. The world just got a little bit happier.
So, you gotta evolve.
When you were a music journalist, did you ever do an interview with air musicians before you had met?
No, never. No. No, it was only, real musicians. And what was interesting, it was, mostly people trying to escape, their daily lives and often very young.
Yeah.
And I thought it was very interesting, to meet people from all over the world and see that, at some point, everybody has the same needs or the same dreams. And for me, it was very, very rich. To meet, all these people. And it's, often, the interviews were very long. And it was like a catharsis too, because, people were telling their whole lives. And for me, at the end of the story, it was often like a therapy,
Yes.
and you have so much, and you have so much stuff on your tape, and you're like, oh my God, how am I going to say that? I cannot say that to the world, I cannot say that in a magazine. So it was very interesting, and I mean, on a human level, it was very, very rich.
For sure. Do you still have all of your tapes?
I still have. Well, the thing is, I gave it to a foundation.
Oh, you did? Good.
Yeah, like to save them, and I'm trying to call them back, but they don't know where it is.
Oh no!
Because I knew the guy at the time, and he. That guy left now, so I'm trying to talk to the new person, and they're like, well, I don't know where your tapes are, but I have like 300 interviews,
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd like to find them back, and sometimes when I have someone is on back on the scene, or even disappeared, I'm like, well, I want to I want to find this interview back and try to do something with it, because that's the shame, when you write stories. I mean, in the end, because I saw all of my friends photographer at the time, they're all making books now with the photos we did together and the photos we did at the time, and it's very representative of an era.
Yeah.
Because you have all this style, and people change, and often it's the same people on the scene still, even 20 years later. But and I'm like, oh gosh, I have all that stuff, and I should really do something with it. Sometimes I'm like, oh God, you really should do books. Like, I have so many books I want to write, but yeah.
You should. I agree. Let's get that done. I want to read them.
I feel like, I was given so much, prime material and travels and experiences that, it's meant to be it's got to be something, it's got to be something coming out of it,
100%. I mean, as someone who loves the idea of meeting people and traveling the world and that being your whole life. I think your life as a journalist is just so amazing. Was every day awesome, or like, how did you balance traveling the world and always being on the road, and then also having a home base? Like, what was that like during the time?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you have no home base,
Yeah.
So you just got to. You can't really choose, because it's such a world, what do you say, a whirlwind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whirlwind. That it never stops, And I was traveling 200 days a year. And at the end, I remember my boss, the third year, he was like, well, I was 20 years old. And was like, yeah, you're not so excited about everything, every day. And I'm like, man, when you send me up to LA, to see a show, and, fly me back 2 days later with a piece done, Emily, I'm like, yeah, I can't be excited.
Yeah, you only have time to like sleep, be jet lagged, and maybe write in time.
I didn't eat at the time. Which is not the same today. Which is one of my great joy today. But at the same time, I could live, on beer and no sleep.
Yep.
And cigarettes. And that's the other thing. You're getting, and also, because I feel like I'm passing stories, from some people to others. So it often feels like, you have to digest all that all the time, and it's a big work, it takes a lot of energy, you don't see it, because you see someone sitting behind your computer.
Yeah.
And even today, people are like, oh yeah, does it take you so much time, to do things? Well, you're just starting from a blank page. So
yep.
Yes, it's a lot of energy, and no, you don't see it, and on the opposite of, influencers, who are making a photo each time they're doing something. There's no photo done each time you're making a paragraph.
Yeah, I mean, even the podcast, which is so much easier than writing an article because it's happening in real time, but there's still hours and hours of work beyond the recording that goes into it. So like times that by 10 is what the article is, like a written one, because I don't have to, we have this amazing conversation and it's captured. And then there's still things that have to happen after, but I don't need to recreate it and transform it into something that's a cohesive linear story.
Right.
So yeah, it's impressive, the people who write well and people like you who don't just write well, but create entire spaces for conversations and stories to be told. Because it's a beast. Like the fact that you ran that magazine for 10 years, and I'm sure it wasn't the only thing you were doing, right? When you were doing Sport and Style.
Yeah, so Sport and Style, when we created it, I mean, we started from a blank page. It wasn't my idea, but I was hired for the first issue to do it. And honestly, nobody was thinking we were going to do another issue.
Yeah, that's how a lot of things start.
Yeah, but if you look at, it's like people, it's like love stories. I mean, often it's, the one who works the longest.
Yep.
But so because I spent half of my career being freelancing and writing for different magazines or trends offices. And the other half being, how do you say, being an editor.
Yep.
But when you become an editor, I mean, it's another story because then you have a lot of people to hire first, and then to run the office and run the daily things, and that takes a lot of energy too. And then you're not writing that much anymore. Mm-hmm. And I really always try to keep that link with writing, because that's for me, that's the job. That's the core of the job. And if you lose that, I mean, you're becoming someone else. I mean, even if you're deciding, for a lot of different stories for others, it's never the same, because when you imagine a story and then you ask someone to write it, I mean, of course it's going to be different because someone else is doing it.
Yeah.
So it's never going to be, the same. And I love the fact of, discovering things and discovering people. And people often ask, like, oh, what do you like, or what do you think is interesting? Well, for me, I mean, everything is interesting, and it's not, it's not trying to be polite or, not trying to answer the question. It's really, I mean, everyone has a story to tell. Mm-hmm. And what I love the most is, even sometimes you have a preconceived idea on someone. Mm-hmm. And then when you talk with them or when you discover them, you discover something else too. And, the doors open to something else. So I think that's the human factor that is interesting.
No, I mean, I completely agree. I love learning and meeting and seeing everything. Like, I really can't think of something where I'd be like, no, thanks. Like, I cannot come up with that list. And exactly what you said of everyone has a story. Like, that's why I'm doing this, because there's so many amazing stories that don't make it into the mainstream space. And I often think that, the stories that we're telling on here and the people that we're showcasing are more inspirational than the people who get the attention, just because there's a different level of everyday, like, grind and hustle and go out there and figure it out. Like, it's real. And to look at someone with, like yourself, with the accomplishments that you have and the stories you have, I mean, just you on your own and the story that you could tell from your life experience is so fascinating, let alone all the stories you could tell of all the people that you've met, right? And the places that you've been.
Yeah. But you said it. I mean, it's about learning, and I think that life, is really about learning all the time, and you don't stop one day. You cannot decide one day, oh, I've learned enough, and there's nothing else to learn now. I'm going to do something else. I mean, for me, this is the end of life.
Yeah. Yep.
And I remember, school was interesting, not so much. No, because there was that human factor missing, and I think I choose that job to be able to learn all the time, and also maybe to be able not to make a choice about having a job.
Yeah.
Really, because one day you're with a fisherman in Iceland, and the other day you are with a countess on the French Riviera, and that's the interesting thing. It's like skipping and switching world all the time.
Yes, I'm having complete life envy right now. The more that you keep sharing your story. No, but it's true. Like, there's so many fascinating people and stories, and just the scale you described, from a fisherman to a countess, right? And everything in between. Yeah. Like, people are just so interesting, and the things that they decide to create, and the things they worry about, and the life that they've led. There's just such a richness in the storytelling just from that alone.
And I think also you hear the lesson, or you hear the stories that you want to hear, because you're writing your story through all the other stories at the end. Mm-hmm. And
it seems like you've had a lot of success of continuing to have new opportunities come to you, right? Like you continue to be able to work freelance, and then someone calls you about sport and style. And then, like, did all of these opportunities come to you? Did you seek them? Like, how have you sustained your career?
No, I think that being happy, I think that to be happy, you have to stay, close to yourself through the road. Mm-hmm. And, because it's easy, to wake up 5 years or 10 years after saying, what am I doing here? And what is this life? And what did I choose in this life? Well, nothing, because you kept on, not losing things, but just following, a path that wasn't really meant to be, or because it was easier to choose that way. You chose that, and then you lose yourself on the way too. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very important to remember who you are and what you love and what you want to do. And often, for me, the worst and the strongest remembrance of that is often when you're losing someone around you. Yeah. When someone just died, and I lost my first editor a few months ago, and
I'm so sorry.
And a few relatives, and it's always a shock, and you're always like, okay, what was I doing in my life? Okay, well, you know what? It's not important, and let's face now what is important, because tomorrow everything can stop, and you need to, and I need to be as fast as possible where I want to be, before anything happens.
Yeah.
So that's that's the way I work, and yeah, it's not always easy to keep the same. Your closest choice, and the things you like in life. But I think that it's like that you can renew yourself and continue to be yourself through the way and to continue to do what you like, really.
When you were in your 20s, did you have the same perspective of always choosing what you thought would be the most fun or the next adventure or true to yourself? Or is that like intuition been developed over time?
No, I think in my 20s, I didn't control much.
Yeah.
It was just around, and I didn't really realize what was going on, because when I was seeing my friends, they were like, "Oh my God, you're so lucky! You're going to see bands, you're going to see shows, and you paid for that."
Mm-hmm.
And as you asked before, I mean, I was a fan of music, but I didn't have like a big notion of music or culture, or culture of music. And I remember my first boss, always talking about the White Album, the
Yep.
Beatles White Album, which I didn't know, at the time. And for him, it was a tragedy. And he was like, "Well, you can't be a writer, if you don't know that album." But I always followed my intuition, and I think I have a good intuition in general. Well, I just lost it once or twice in my life. For all the rest, it worked really, and the way I was approaching the music, it's the same way I'm approaching, design or architecture or fashion or whatever lifestyle piece I'm writing today. It's put yourself in others' shoes, and I'm trying to be the person who's going to read the story and try to make it interesting for that person.
Yeah.
Because I don't like people who write for insiders.
Yeah. Yep.
With that side where, well, I'm writing to you, but, you can't really understand what I'm writing, so...
I love that you brought that up, because I was just going to ask about that. Because so often with my background in footwear and apparel, but on mostly the sport side of the world, the other side of that world is often the, haute couture, high fashion, a footwear apparel. What people really think about fashion industry, they think about that side, not the side that I've worked in so much.
Yeah.
And there's often an intimidation of people who, at the end of the day, we're all making the same stuff. But there's an intimidation of it being so exclusive to move into that space as someone who works in the industry, but especially as somebody who wants to talk about, streetwear or what's happening on the runways. And coming from where you did, being someone who was so ingrained into the music culture, but not necessarily part of it when you joined, and getting to share those stories, it sounds like you've brought that same like outside but inside perspective to all the other areas that you write about.
Yeah, exactly. And it's true that fashion, it's a historical side to fashion, to be really very closed world. I think mostly on fear.
For sure.
More than anything else. And there is that very intimidating behavior towards the newcomers, as you said. Yeah, it's true. Totally.
How was it for you breaking into that world?
Well, I arrived with a new magazine. I mean, I was thinking, because I did women's fashion magazines, but that was freelancing, so I had no status really.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was the editor for both Sport and Style and Men's Vogue, then you come with a status. And then it's crazy from one day to the other, but it's the same the other way around. Suddenly, I mean, everyone, everywhere you are is important, but because you become more like a representative.
Yep. You're the ambassador.
Yeah. Thank you. Way easier. An ambassador. Then you become an ambassador for the magazine or for the publication, for the print, for the publishing house.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody wants you, and then you have to be everywhere, and if you're not at that show, I mean, it's the end of the world. And if you're not at that cocktail, it's the end of the world. And I thought it was both very exciting, but also very, very heavy,
mm-hmm.
because you're not free. You're not free. You're not free of your time anymore, and you're not free of your work. And it's not the final work that counts in the end. It's what you do on the way and how you show yourself.
Yeah.
And what show you show to the world,
mm-hmm.
at that time. And that in the fashion industry is really, really, really exhausting.
Yes. All aspects of, I think, the fashion and entertainment world are exhausting, because it doesn't stop. And there's so much competition to always be on the edge and always be in that small percentage that's in the discovery phase.
Exactly. And my purpose, is to do things because I think that's interesting. And I think that's my life in the end. And that's what I keep from it, and that's how I spend my time on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not how I show myself, to the world, or how many cocktails I will do in a week or anything like that. So,
How have you learned to say no thank you and have some sanity when you're in such high demand?
Well, at some point, I mean, you just can't. I mean, you just can't do everything.
Mm-hmm.
You can be there for everyone, And there was a famous French president who was saying, well, I'm working all day long. They won't see me at night. Don't ask me to do anything at night. Because that's my life, and otherwise, how do you recharge yourself? Which is not totally true, because as long as I was single and you have nothing else to do. I spent my life working because that was the fun was inside too.
Oh yeah.
And then at some point I was like, well, I don't want to end, like an old-fashioned lady.
Alone in your pied-à-terre with your whole closet.
Yes, in the pied-à-terre, and having 100,000 miles on my flying cards.
With your beautiful closet, yeah.
Yeah, and a beautiful clothes, and that's great, and people are just dying to wear clothes, and and yes, it's exciting, but at some point when you have you have so much stuff around you. I mean, at some point I was like, oh my God, all these objects are taking so much time in my life.
Yes.
And it's funny because when I was young, I was never into fashion. I mean, the kids were laughing at me because I was wearing a cook pants,
Yep, chef pants.
Well, I had no style. Basically, when I see the photos, I had no style, and I don't care. Today
it's very grunge of you. Mm-hmm.
It's very grunge. That's my punk side. That's my husband.
I have that same side. Yes.
So I say, yeah, I'm a punk who discovered luxury, and it's easy to like it, but I'm still punk inside.
Yes. There's still a majority of black in the closet, no matter. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
I get yelled at all the time for maybe wearing too much black and gray and denim. But I don't know. It's nice.
Well, and it's funny because if you look at, well, the people in the fashion industry, like, designers coming out at the end of the show and everything, they always wear like very simple white, black things.
Yes. Yeah. It's, it makes me feel better that when people are up to things, they like black is just what you go to because you just don't want to think about it all the time. There's moments when I love like really putting the creative and the craft into what I'm walking out the door like. And there are other days when I'm like, nope, my to-do list is so big today. I'm like, I just got to go. There's no time. Like what's there? And you go back to the things that, just work.
Yeah, exactly. And I had a friend who was saying, well, the colors is inside,
Yes. All of my color and sparkle and glitter is always on the inside. It's internal unicorn.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And today you do a lot of writing, I know, with Vanity Fair. What is that relationship today and for which publications globally?
Well, today I'm working as a freelance again, actually, since my son was born 6 years ago. So yeah, I've been working for French Vanity Fair since 5 years now, almost. I'm freelancing for them and I'm writing lifestyle stories for their website. And I'm working for the Architectural Digest, the US website, too. And I'm doing the Paris Louis Vuitton City Guide, and I'm doing the hotel section.
What was that last one?
I'm doing the hotel section.
Yes.
Voila. And the other part is writing content for luxury brands, whether in beauty or lifestyle. So that's another important part now, which is quite trendy for the journalist.
The Louis Vuitton City Guide is, to me, it's like that little piece of accessible luxury.
Yes.
Like
yes,
I love Paris. I always have, even before I went. And then once I went, it met all of my expectations. So I instantly was in love forever with the city. And I love it because you see all the wonderful, beautiful stereotypes that people talk about in Paris. Like they're all actually there. You can turn one corner and see the fashion world. You can turn another corner and there's like a gypsy sitting in front of, the Eiffel Tower or, the beloved Notre Dame that I look forward to it being rebuilt. You go another corner and there's, the old man with the baguette, and then there's all the trendy like kids running around and the stylish families with kids in strollers. And I'm like, how is this possible? How is everything that you see come out of the city like actually still here? So I love that. I love the mix of the cultures and the people and the new and the old, like all mixed together.
Yeah, it's true. It's really fascinating about Paris. I mean, it's not as clean as a Woody Allen movie.
Correct.
There's a few nightmares in the middle, but you got to take it. And it's true that, for me, Paris was always the right size of a city where, if you want to meet people, you can do it. Yes. If you want to be by yourself, you can do it too, because you're not going to run, into each other every day, even if you do sometimes. Yeah. Because it's a small world in the end. But it's a good spot to stop by, but you got to leave it to enjoy it.
Which I think is true of every place in the whole world.
Yeah, probably with all the cities.
Especially for people like you and I that love traveling and do it so much that I get itchy if I'm in one place for too long.
Me too.
When did you decide to make Paris your home base?
I was, I grew up near Strasbourg, so I really grew up in the countryside.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really enjoyable because I really wanted to share that with my son, for instance, today. But I was really needing a big city. And when I did a few weeks of studying in Strasbourg, I love the city, and it's really interesting because it's really international,
Mm-hmm.
with the parliament and all these schools and universities and everything. But you always run into the same people and da, da, da. So I was like, oh my god, that's way too small for me. I need to go to Paris.
Yep. So,
And my school, my journalism school, was in Paris, so I felt like I was conquering like a new city when I went there.
mm-hmm.
I was 18, probably 17.
Yeah.
When I went to school.
And Paris has changed so much in that time. Like, it doesn't occur to people as tourists that Paris changes very much, but when it's been your home for that long, and especially what it's gone through, unfortunately, with some of the terrorism and a lot of what's happening across Europe with migrants and immigration and that entire discussion, Paris has changed somewhat within that. How has it changed for you for the good, and what are the areas where you are excited to see it continue to evolve?
Well, it's true that, all these last years with all the terrorist attacks we had, it was very difficult to keep a joyful life in Paris,
Yeah.
and as innocent as before. It was quite heavy because all these places, we all knew people who were there. We all, could have been there, and it was touching directly our society.
Yep.
And the way we live. Shows, cafes, this all these things that you are supposed to enjoy. That is supposed to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
So it's true that the ambience in Paris was became quite heavy. For the parties and just for the people in general. But maybe it's also a question of generation, because I'm like, my friends are becoming, turning like between the 40s and 50s. And so I'm like, maybe it's about getting old. You don't want to, you can't enjoy that much, but and just the everyday life is is taking over, and you don't go out that much, and the parties are not that fun, and the people are not that fun.
Well, maybe still fun, just less wild.
Life is long when you make it.
Yes.
But so I thought, and I see my husband, who was really fed up with Paris. And he wanted to leave. So now we spend our time, half here in the Alps, part in Corsica, where he's from, and part in Paris. And I must say that I enjoy Paris much more that way. It's much more exciting again.
Yeah.
And when I go there, I'm like, I have so much energy, and I'm so excited about everything, and that it's still a little bit special, and that makes the moment special too.
And then once you wear yourself out, you go back to the Alps or Corsica.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh. No, you've got this. This sounds like an amazing plan.
It was, for me, it was the end of the world of leaving Paris, because I never thought I wouldn't be living there. All my life. But it turned out it was a good idea, And today, when I see my friends from Paris, they're like, soaked from work, and because companies are asking always more and more, from everyone, and
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to stay to keep your energy, to work well, to have a balanced life, to have a love life, to have a parent life, and to gather everything with harmony. So I think that's my goal now too.
Where in the Alps do you guys have a home?
Well, we are in Les Arcs, which is a ski station.
Beautiful.
Voilà, so we are at 2,000 meter height.
Is it a beautiful sunny day there today, or was it?
No, it was raining this morning, but we made it out this afternoon, and we went out for a walk to a magical water source.
Oh,
and we picked up some water there, and I brought my mom there.
It's so charming, right? Yes. How did you meet your husband?
I met my husband on a boat, on a classical boat, because part of his work is organizing regattas, classic yacht regattas in Corsica.
Mm-hmm.
And I was invited on a press trip, and he was organizing that week trip that I took for a pastis brand.
Yes.
And it was a beautiful classic yacht. I didn't know anything at the time about classic yachts, and it was a boat that took the Prince of Monaco, the Prince Rainier, with Grace Kelly on the honeymoon.
So super fancy yacht. Mm-hmm.
It was super fancy yacht, big cabin with a bathroom and a bathtub and everything. And I was about to cancel the trip a few days before because I was just coming back from a trip to Greenland with the explorer Mike Horn.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, I did the most exciting thing in my life. And I was like, oh, another boat, I'm done. Let's cancel that. And the girls at the press office, they were like, no, you can't do that because you are the only guest for the week. I was like, okay. And that's where I meet my husband. So it's funny to think of that story.
Was it love at first sight?
No.
Now you have to ask, because some people are like 100% yes. Most people are like no. And it's I love the no's, because you're like, ooh, well, what happened?
No, I was with my best friend, and we were following him. We were taking notes because he was such a UFO in our world. I mean, everything he was saying was so different and so unique. And
because it was all yacht speak, or what made him a UFO?
Because it was, I don't know, he's just different, which is not in that sense.
Yeah.
I mean, we weren't used to guys like this, okay, in Paris or elsewhere.
So I have to get more information of like, what type of guy is he? Like, is he super fancy and sophisticated? Is he?
No, he was more like, how do you say, Indiana Jones?
Yes, an adventurer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, exactly. So he's an adventurer, and when he's in a city, he's trying to find the south and the sun to know where to go, because he can't find his way in the street. So yeah, he's a guy from the nature. I mean, he's Corsican.
Yes. Fascinating. Now I want to meet him because...
Well, you met him.
Yes. I meant like actually have a conversation with him. Yeah. Because I think I said hello and then just kept talking to you for like 8 hours. So yeah. Oh, amazing. I love that you have had this life of travel and journalism and meeting fascinating people and doing amazing things. So of course you marry Indiana Jones. Like, I don't think there's another option.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't find anything more exotic and fun, and yeah.
Well, yeah, there's no, after a while, everyone that you would meet is just like, yes, like, are you more exciting than the explorer? No.
No.
No. Yeah.
No.
Well, and I imagine that the two of you must balance each other out quite a bit as well.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, we often say today, I took some of your, personality side, and he took some of mine. So it's funny how, when you spend a lot of time with someone, you end up like being a bit like him, even if you don't choose it. I mean, it's just.
I think
it's just
anyone.
natural.
It happens with your best friends as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So now you guys are splitting your time between the Alps, Corsica, and Paris. You have your 6-year-old son.
Yes.
And like, what's next for you guys? What are you creating next?
Well, I think what's important is always, to keep doing what you like to do. And I'm working on a new project, which is realizing and editing some content for hotels.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought, I've been traveling a lot, of course, through the world, and I've been visiting a lot of hotels in Paris too for the city guide. And I just realized that, hotels have no content. I mean, no stories to tell to the clients. And I want to offer like a print or podcast or digital version of a story for the person who's falling asleep in this hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And I was making some researches, and I found that people take generally like 19 minutes to fall asleep.
Yep.
So I'd like my stories to last 19 minutes, of reading.
Very cool.
So, it could be a story related to the hotel or to the place. If you have like several, I don't know, famous characters who went there, or an incredible place, or or it could be, a novel, or all kind of stories written by different authors too.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I think it sounds amazing. I mean, I want to listen to them even if I'm not staying at the hotel, because I think there's so many, when you go someplace new and you walk into a hotel, especially like a cute boutique hotel that has character and is telling part of the city story, like you want to know about it. You want to know, at least I do, because I'm curious about everything. Like, why is it here? Like, what's this neighborhood about? Like, when you're not a local, you really want to get what that place is as fast as possible. And like, sometimes I've gone to a city and just shown up and you figure it out. And then other times when you're at a place that has so much and it's so complex, like I think of Barcelona as being such an amazing and complex city with the different neighborhoods. And even if you do a city hop on, hop off bus tour in Barcelona, like, you'll see things, but you really don't know anything. And it's like sitting in the cafe or sitting in some other place when you start talking to people who are from there, when you really get the information you want. So to be able to get some, 19-minute previews of that. So when you show up at a hotel and you fall asleep that first night, it gets you inspired to go discover something else. That would be amazing.
Yeah, and also it's a little book, a little souvenir that you can take home, and that makes really sense with your trip.
Yes, 100%. Like I would rather know a neighborhood in a city than to know a whole city.
Yeah, because you can do it all in one trip. So.
Mike Rowe does a great podcast, How I Heard It. And all of his podcasts are like 5 to 8 minutes, and that's it, each episode. And he calls it the podcast for the when people can't pay attention. What's this called?
Oh, ADD.
Yeah, exactly. So it's podcasting and storytelling for the ADD. And he does them in such a great way when it's just him talking and telling a story. And at the end, it gets revealed like who he told the story about. They're usually, interesting or famous people or people that created something that you know. Like he told the story of how the guillotine got its name and how the poor guy is like, his name now means death, but he was just made an invention and it stuck. But it's cool. Like you wait till the end because you want to know how this all connects to something that you already know a little bit about. But that sounds super fun. So I'm pro you writing books. I'm pro you telling your stories. I'm pro you creating all of this because, just coming from a person, stories and content that comes from people who are truly curious and come at it from a, not their perspective, but whatever shows up perspective, to me is the best form of storytelling and content because there's no ego in it.
Yeah, no. Mm-mm. And you are not the subject, other people are. So
yes, yeah. When you look back at your career and everything that you've accomplished, and what do you see as your biggest victories?
Well, I think it's still doing what I love, and doing the way I want to do it. Because working as a freelance and having a family, having a kid and a husband. I mean, you want to spend a lot of time. I mean, I want to spend, a lot of time with them too. And trying to find a balance between all that. I mean, that's quite a victory, but I think that's quite a victory for any woman, really.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything takes so much time, and I'm so passionate about my work. I mean, I could do that night and day, So for me, it's really like, okay, now you got to stop that. You got to switch on to something else and do something else with other people. So
I totally get that. If you're doing something that you love and lights you up, it's easy to get swept into it. And it's not bad, right? It's really, there's so many elements to it when you really look at all the parts that go into your work. Like going to the cocktail party is part of your work, and writing is part of the work, and meeting people is part of the work. And if you enjoy all those aspects, there is no reason to switch off, right? If you don't have to. But I think it.
Yeah.
What do you set up in your day or your schedule or routine so that you do switch off and you do get time with the other things that you care about? Like, do you have a cutoff every day when you stop working, or?
Well, that's when my son comes out of school. I mean, so I'm like, I'm taking a pause with him, and then I can go back to work or not. It depends, but so I'm trying to concentrate really my work now. I mean, I think I work much less hours in a week, but it's way more efficient than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because my routine when I'm here in the Alps, it's I drop off my son at 8:15, 8:30, and then I go for a walk in the forest here.
So nice.
And then I come back here. I come back to my office and start working around 9 o'clock. I love to get up really early, so sometimes I'm up at like 5 or 6, and I can go to my computer directly, and then having the daily thing going on after, and then my son comes out at 4:30, so I'm stopping. But when I'm here, I have no lunch. I have no break really at lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm in Paris, I'm mostly, seeing people and doing lunches and dinners and cocktails and seeing people, seeing my clients, seeing the magazines, trying to get new ideas with press things, and and really recharging, the first, the matière première, the raw material.
Yep. How have you and your husband like figured out a routine together so that you both can like continue your passions and continue what you care about outside of with having 3 homes and having your son and wanting time together? Like, what have you guys put together or in place to allow each of you those freedoms?
Well, the thing is, I mean, there's no routine because it changes all the time,
Yeah.
So when he's on a trip or when I'm on a trip, I mean, this week he's both. I mean, he's in Corsica preparing the new regatta, the Corsica Classic for this summer, and I was in Paris for a week. I just came back yesterday, so we're not going to see each other for 2 weeks, and I think that's quite the secret. Not to see each other all the time. No, but it's true because then you can recharge, and you also have like things to tell, and because he's always like, oh, I've never been with someone as interesting, and you always have like stories to tell and everything, and I think it's important to recharge yourself in the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
And after we can have very long times like this winter when you see each other every night and you don't travel that much, and or days, I mean, we worked for years, I mean, face to face on the same office like all day long, and people are like, how do you do that? And it's the same table for the dinner.
Yeah.
So I mean, sometimes you need your space, but I think that we love to do things together. We're working together on the regatta,
mm-hmm.
on the Corsica Classic, because I'm helping him with like sponsors and the press and journalists and the image,
mm-hmm.
and so it's quite fun to do something together. And at some point when you're grown up, it's also good to do some things together because otherwise you never see each other.
Yeah.
So if you want to see people, just work with them. And he's like me. I mean, we're working all the time, but we are enjoying it so much that, that's our common passion too, I think, even if it's not the same thing. I mean, we share the same process, I think.
Yeah, and there's such a difference between working all the time on something that you love and working all the time on something that you don't love. When you don't love it, it's just this heaviness that impacts you and everyone that cares about you. And when it's something that you love, it really can be a source of energy for you and everyone that you love. Exactly.
The energy is totally different. And, sometimes when I meet people and they're exhausted and they're like, how do you, I mean, and it's like, change is good too.
Mm-hmm.
And people are afraid of change. I mean, most of the people are afraid of change. I mean, if you ask someone, do you want to change something? It's like, no, please don't. But change is good, and I'm happy when a change is happening because, that means that the wheel is turning and, new things come up and you got to make space. And I'm a big Feng Shui fan.
Yep.
So I'm always working in my home to make sure that, spaces are empty so that new things can come in.
No, I think that's such an amazing point because I think it's important in your physical space. I think it's important in your mental space.
Yeah.
And even like your spiritual space. Like, where is there room for something new? Where is there room to discover something? If everything's full and you're just carrying everything around.
Exactly.
There's no space. Literally or figuratively. And you mentioned it before about like the heaviness of things. And, I think when you travel so much, you realize that you can live forever out of a carry-on suitcase. And it's amazing how much stuff you don't need. So there's such a freedom in not having having things because you don't need to worry about it. You're able to say yes and be more fluid and flexible when there's just not stuff you have to worry about or make sure is taken care of or cleaned, or the list keeps going. So I think that's a really big secret that a lot of people who are successful and living a life that they feel empowered by is how much they say no to things so they can say yes to experiences.
Yeah, exactly. And I can see it in my work. I mean, how, now even in the luxury field, I mean, how you see how experience is valued much more than objects,
Mm-hmm.
and you have it in the datas and everything. I mean, people want an experience rather than, a new thing,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not no one, there have been people, but most people tell stories about their experiences. They don't tell stories about all of the stuff that they have.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, there are a few books, like I think there's a Japanese woman who did a whole picture book of all of her daughter's things that are pink, and like just took a year and documented all of it because she couldn't believe how much pink stuff existed in her house. So it's kind of a joke book, but when you look at the industries that you've gone back and forth between, you mentioned how for a long time you were the only woman in the space. How did that kind of shape who you are and how you have grown as a person? And what has happened when you transitioned into the fashion space where it is much more balanced or even leaning towards women?
Well, it's true that, whether in music and my first jobs or in the men's magazine I've been doing for 10 years, I was surrounded by men most of the time, and I was the only editor in a men's magazine for a long time. But you know what? Men don't talk about that.
No.
It's like, and even I felt, I never felt like I had to write a story for a man or for a woman when it was for a man or a women magazine.
Mm-hmm.
I never had that approach. I think with men, you're just talking to a person. Well, maybe that's cliche, but
no, it's true.
You're here to do something. I mean, I never put ahead that I'm a woman.
Yeah.
In my jobs, I think that women work probably much more than men because they have to. I mean, because they have to, not because they have to, but because they have to if they want the same thing. And I think that, in the end, my boss valued me because, I mean, I don't think he realized I was working all the time. I mean, that work was my whole life, actually. And it's only when I got pregnant, that I really saw the difference. Because then I thought, there's really a glass ceiling, and all of a sudden, like, everybody remembered that it was a woman, including myself. And that was a big shock.
What did you see happen? So they acknowledged that you were female for maybe the first time.
Yeah.
And then what else did you experience?
And it all coincided at the same time. I mean, I met my husband and I got pregnant, like, I don't know, a few months later. So that was very fast. But before that, I was single. I had no baby, so I was working all the time.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. And after that, I was like, well, no, now things are going to be different. And I really felt there was a glass ceiling, for women. And the thing, I was never told that before because everyone was like, oh, it's so great, that's fantastic, you're going to see have a baby, blah blah blah. And nobody told me that it was so tough. I mean, to come back to work,
yeah.
having a baby, And then I started to talk, to women when we had business lunch and everything. And they all told me the same thing. Like, since I got my baby, I'm like, well, I'm in the office, but, they took me all the exciting files for me and, I wasn't promoted and I wasn't blah, blah, blah. And I was like, really? So, it's really happening in this world, and nobody's talking about it. So that was quite important.
And you also, when your son was born, you also decided to do more freelance work. Was that so you could have more flexibility and work and make it all happen together? Or did you feel pushed into it a bit more?
Not immediately, because I came back to work. I was still the editor for Sport and Style. And when I came back from my pregnancy, I came back to work like normally, like 4 months after.
Okay.
That is the time we have in France, maternity leave, and I went to work like straight ahead, and it was a big schedule. I mean, it was a big change, and I prepared everything, until the day I was the day that I had my baby. I was still sending emails like that was a Monday morning.
Yes, very boss lady of you. Yes.
Like, like try to switch off. And then I came back, and you know what? I don't remember a single moment with my son for the first year. And that clearly, it terrified me because I was like, well, I'm seeing the photos of my son. I'm like, you know what? I don't remember that moment. And it was really a shock for me. And I was like, well, that's not life, that's not how you want to lead life. And there was also tension with my husband. And actually life did the work for me because the two editors that I hired, who were longtime friends, pushed me aside while I was pregnant and decided they wanted my job. They took the opportunity of the maternity leave to work on that clearly, and work, not only as a single person, as two guys together.
Yeah, because you had replaced
I was replaced by two guys, so that means probably that I'm worth two guys in real life.
At least.
So, there was something too that, I think it was a question of power. I mean, I don't think if I was a man, the story would have been different, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But because I was a woman and I had that much power, it was very difficult. I mean, for men to deal with that.
That's wild. I mean, that must have been so frustrating for you in the time. Like, I'm sure you were heartbroken and add on all the layers of being a new mom and exhausted and trying to figure that out. And then to have that happen, it must have been a hard time for you.
Yeah, it was a very hard time because, as you say, you have a baby and it's like, it's not like you're going to school, to have babies. I mean, nobody's preparing you for that. You don't know you don't know what is going to happen. I mean, even if everything went smoothly, I mean, it's such a revolution, it's such a big change. And after that, I was like, you know what? I don't think I'll ever do something that good than a baby. I've been, doing magazine all my life. I mean, nothing is as, incredible as making a baby,
Mm-hmm.
And it's simple, and everyone can do it, but it is really incredible. And that's probably, in the end, I think that's the power, men are longing for, because they don't have that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's easy to conceive the baby, but making a great human is where the hard work is, right?
Well, that's the hard work. Yeah.
As you went through your career and these challenges, like who were people that inspired you and who did you go to for leadership or mentorship?
I always had not a lot of mentors, but I always had mentors in my life. And I think that it's a really important place. It's a really important thing to have through life. People who can teach you. I mean, I'm thinking of Yves, who passed away in a few months ago. He was my first editor at the Rock magazine, and he was a teacher before that. So he had really that notion of, like transmitting. And he really showed me, he really explained me the work, and he really got me better, at my work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's so many people. I can't think of everyone, but there's one I'm really thinking of too. It's Laura Albert, who's been an author under the name of J.T. Leroy.
Mm-hmm.
And she has an incredible story too, and you should get her for the podcast too.
I'd love to connect us.
Yeah, she lives in San Francisco, and I met her when I was editor at the Men's Vogue, and we did a special issue on the States, and we're trying to find people who could tell us what the country looks like at that time. Mm-hmm. And my friend Jenny, who was AD at the time of the magazine, told me about this author. And then I contacted her/him, because at the time she was supposed to be a man.
Yeah.
It's a long story, but then, and then we connected and we talked on the phone, and right after that, her story came out, and her story was that she created a character to impersonate the author mm-hmm. that she was, because she didn't want to show her to the world as she was. So it was easier for her to embody that, person into somebody else. And when I finally met her, because the story came out in between, and we became like great friends. And she's really a power of nature. She's really incredible and unique.
Well, I think that's a great segue into when you hear the phrase "powerful lady." Like, what does it mean to you, and how does it leave you?
Well, one of my projects. I didn't really work on it, but that's a thing that I'm thinking of often. Is I'd like to make a book on the women, who are really, maybe not celebrities, but powerful, or who made some things, incredible things in their life. And I'd like to talk about their men, their husband, or their
mm-hmm.
boyfriends, or whatever,
Yeah.
I'd like to hear Madonna, talk about her relation to men, about her play. About how it feels, to be in couple, with a woman like that.
I think that'd be really interesting.
And how they cope, with men, because I asked myself that question like so often in my life until I met my husband. That it's really intriguing. So when I think of a powerful lady, for me, because it's my ideal life, it's someone who's coping with a successful life, personal life, with her choice, a personal and a successful personal life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree that the balance is a key factor in, I think, anyone being powerful, and whatever that looks like for them, right? Because some people, the personal life means single and swashbuckling and running amok, and that's their power. And other people, the power is in finding that partner and having a family. And I think, yeah, true powerful people are really just authentic in who they are and what they care about. Going back to kind of how you started this, right? About if you're living into your happiness and your joy and your curiosity, like your power comes out almost automatically. Like you don't need to work for it.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. But it's a job. But it's a work.
Oh yeah, yeah. None of it's easy.
Well, I think you can be dragged down. You can be dragged down by whatever you do or people surrounding you, and it's important to do that work for yourself, and yeah, for your own happiness.
Mm-hmm. What's some of the best advice you've been given?
Well, when I was starting to work, like around 17, I went to see a video producer in Strasbourg, and he told me some really basic things, but I mean, I think I can still relate to them like 20 years later. It's like, the people you love, I mean, your family, they don't want to let you go. Mm-hmm. So they will try to keep you with them. And, the people you want to reach, or the world you want to reach, they don't want to let you in. So that's basically the story of your life.
Fighting between the two.
Yeah, exactly.
We ask everybody on the podcast, like, where they rank themselves on the Powerful Ladies scale. 0 being average, everyday human, and 10 being mega powerful lady. Where do you see yourself today, and where would you put yourself on average?
On average, what do you mean?
So if the scale's 1 to 10, where do you feel today on the Powerful Ladies scale? And on most days, where would you put yourself?
That's very tough. I would say maybe 6 or 7, because you can always do better.
Yeah.
But I think that I'm quite happy with, leading my personal life and my work life. Mm-hmm. And I think it's quite a balance. And it's also, when I tell people these days what it looks like, I think that it looks good.
It looks great. Yes. For women who want to be freelance journalists and would love to spend their life kind of following in your path, what advice would you give them?
To listen to yourself and not to the others, because I think that if you want to follow the things you like, you got to listen to yourself, and that's the only intuition or advice that's gonna work, because you know what you are doing and you know where you are going, so nobody else gonna know for you.
Yeah,
and you got to trust yourself.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's only us.
Yeah.
Well, I think, I knew you were fascinating before, and now I think that everyone listening and joining us on this podcast is going to be huge fans of yours. So I can't wait to get the feedback from this and to be someone to share your incredible story with the rest of the world. Thank you for being a powerful lady. Thank you for just living the life on your own terms. So I really think that's the secret to living full and living happy. And I'm really excited to have a role model like you to look up to and to remind myself, am I playing by those same rules? Because I also value them so much. And thank you for being a yes. It's when you start a project like this, you never know who's going to be a yes. And the fact that you were a yes with enthusiasm really just made me so happy, and I feel so honored. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for thinking of me and for having me.
Of course, of course. Any last minute words of advice or sharing that you would like to give to everyone listening?
Well, I think you got to, be passionate about what you do, and you got to believe in what you do. And it's an easier thing to say than to actually live.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if you put energy, if you're excited by the things if they live in you, you will brought them to life.
I'm a firm believer in all things being connected and having, purpose within them. And you have no idea what sharing your story today has been for me. And but really like just needing the reminder of like what matters to me and what I need to focus on. Because, like when you're freelancing and on your own or creating something from scratch, it's so easy to get sucked into all the junk and the heaviness and the hold on, what is my life supposed to be? So really thank you for the refresher, because I'm so much more lit up than when I got here this morning and just refocused on the things that bring me energy. So thank you.
Oh, that's cool. Well, I was so afraid to be boring, And no, I just, I hope the things that people can relate to. And
so we're going to have you on again. Like, it's just for sure. Because I know, like, I have questions, and I know that other people are going to, about all the parts you talked about, like all of it, because it makes me feel better personally that someone like you worries about being boring, because I do. And it means that we're human.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's an interesting thing in life, and that's how you get to enjoy and to keep the hope for what's best. Because sometimes humans can be horrible, but you have to believe in second chance, and you have to believe that better things can come up, and with faith or not. I mean, it's great to think that.
Yeah. Perfect way to wrap this up. Well, thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you when I'm in Europe next.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you.
How awesome and inspiring is Katia? I truly was left in a completely different mindset after we recorded this episode. Listening to her share her story brought me back to what I value and care about. Using this life to gather great experiences, to share the stories of amazing people and places, to make sure I'm having fun and making up the rules as I go. And who doesn't want to marry their own Indiana Jones? Come on! As Katia mentioned, she and her husband are partnering on the 2019 Corsica Classic Regatta. To follow, support, and get in contact with Katia, you can follow her on Instagram at Katia Kulawick. You can follow her on Twitter at Parisianland. You can follow her on LinkedIn, Katia Assante. Or you can email her, katiakulawickasante@gmail.com. Visit the Corsica Classic website at corsia.classic.com. As always, all of the links to everything for Katia will be in the show notes. If you'd like to support the work that we're doing here at Powerful Ladies, there's a couple of ways you can do that. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Leave a review on any of these platforms. Share the show with all the powerful ladies and gentlemen in your life. Join our Patreon account. Check out the website, thepowerfulladies.com, to hear more inspiring stories, get practical tools to be your most powerful, get 15% off your first order in the Powerful Ladies shop, or donate to the Powerful Ladies One Day of Giving campaign. And of course, follow us on Instagram at Powerful Ladies. For show notes and to get the links to the books, podcasts, and people we talk about, go to thepowerfulladies.com. I'd like to thank our producer, composer, and audio engineer, Jordan Duffy. She's one of the first female audio engineers in the podcasting world, if not the first, and she also happens to be the best. We're very lucky to have her. She's a powerful lady in her own right, in addition to taking over the podcasting world She's a singer-songwriter working on her next album, and she's one of my sisters. So it's amazing to be creating this with her, and I'm so thankful that she finds time in her crazy busy schedule to make this happen. It's a testament to her belief in what we're creating through Powerful Ladies, and I'm honored that she shares my vision. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. I can't wait for you to hear it. Until then, I hope you're taking on being powerful in your life. Go be awesome and up to something you love. Are you looking for a place to get amazing Powerful Ladies merchandise and shop from your favorite female brands? Great news. You can do that all at thepowerfulladies.com at our store. Use code LISTENER, LISTENER, and get 20% off your first purchase.